Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our publishing and coaching services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Warren Whitlock, author of Twitter Revolution. Warren, welcome to the show.
Hi, great. I'm so glad you asked me to come. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
This is going to be fun. You ready to get started?
I am.
All right, question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Currently writing, I'd say start marketing. That would be the number one thing. It is never too early to start marketing. And remember, as good as your book's going to be, when it comes to selling it, you might as well staple it shut. It's a product. It needs to be sold. No one buys your book because of what they read inside. They buy your book and then they read it. So they're buying the author, the cover, the promotion, whatever it is that got them to that, usually a recommendation. And then, of course, once they read you, they'll come back and read more. It's not that the content's not vital. It's very important. But when we talk about marketing, might as well staple it shut.
Well, you mentioned marketing as one of the first things they should focus on. So what should a first-time author do when they're writing their book? How should they start focusing in regards to that marketing aspect, Warren?
Well, I used to recommend this exclusively as the thing to do. Now there's some various things to do. You can start getting active in social media on your topic, go to other blogs, things like that. But why not, the minute you decide to write a book, give it some sort of a title or put it on your regular blog and start talking about it. Where isn't so important anymore as to have something like that, where you give regular updates about what you're doing. One, you're holding yourself accountable. Two, you're whetting the appetite of your audience. And three, you're building the audience.
And you're essentially sharing the author journey with them. That's great. Great point with that. Well, let's talk about the flip side. What do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
About getting published? Well, today, there is no barrier to entry to get published. Anyone can go take a manuscript to Amazon, sign up for the KDP program, and be published. So, it's not a question of whether you will get published. It's a question of how you want to be published. Now, if you want to get into the publishing system, the biggest publisher, you need to have a platform. It's not about the book. It's not about how great you are. It's your platform. Everything is about the platform. I've heard of editorial meetings at the major publishers. Every time I hear they don't really read the proposal or the sample chapter or anything like that. They want to know what your platform is. So if you go walking in with a long list of people that are already interested in you, that are already, if your blog has 300,000 readers, it's possible to get a publishing contract. And that's, and of course, the bigger you get, you want to have an agent and you want to develop relationships over time. But, it's all about getting the right kind of marketing platform. When somebody sees you're going to spend, I'm just exaggerating here for effect, but so if somebody sees you're going to spend $2 million on the promotion of a new book, they definitely are going to want to, talk to you about, wow, what are you doing? Where's this money coming from? Why do people want to hear about you? You're talking about a New York Times bestseller. They know what they're interested. It's not just money. I use money as an example, but same thing if you have a large audience, if you're known, if you were in the news, whatever it is you bring to the table in your platform, that's what they're going to buy.
Well, for those that have email lists, what do you feel is a minimum amount that you should have on the email list to be able to really leverage that platform and to get one of those potential traditional deals?
It's kind of like it's kind of like when they ask Lincoln how long his legs should be. It's got to be enough to get their attention. Mm-hmm. I used to have regular conversations with people that had email lists. It was part of what we did 10, 15 years ago. And I remember noticing that it didn't matter whether somebody had 4,000, 400, or 4 million names on their mailing list. They'd say, it's not that big. And I'm talking about when you get into a frank discussion about what it is. Everybody thinks their mailing list could be larger. Everybody knows they're not getting the open rates and conversions and blah, 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 everything they want to get out of that. It's actually more about how you present it. If you are building a mailing list and you've got 4 people on it, start acting like that's a mailing list and start looking at what it takes to grow that. And back in the early days when all we had was email, I would email something to my people telling them about, tell them about you, go join Paul's mailing list, and expect that you would do the same to me. Mm-hmm. Today, there's a whole lot of other things to do, and then ultimately, a sign-up form where there's some kind of conversion mechanism. They get the free chapter I don't particularly like, but the newsletter, the special gift, the ebook you wrote, whatever it is you're going to give them, and they get that by signing up, and they're interested, they want to follow you. And you can actually backtrack that to how many ads you have to buy, how many impressions or have a conversion. All that can be worked out. So growing a mailing list is very possible once you decide you have one and you're acting like you have a mailing list. More than the number, it's the action of having one.
What I want to do now is transition into a marketing question. I know we've already been talking about marketing, but what I'd like for you to do is to please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
Yeah. Let me use Twitter Revolution because it's my favorite. We used to do a lot of promotions where we would gather a lot of people that had mailing lists, and I would guarantee my client 1 million emails would go out to opt-in email list, not some massive spammy thing. I'd line those all up. We'd all mail on the same day. There'd be a list of gifts to get. That worked pretty well. Well, when it came to Twitter Revolution, I knew, this was 2008, it's 10 years ago, the very first book written about Twitter. I knew that, massive numbers of people were not going to recognize Twitter Revolution as something they needed. My goal was to position myself as the guy who wrote the first book on Twitter. And so we did that. I had a partner, and neither of us planned to have a Twitter business or do much in social media, which, later we changed that because there was just so much demand. But what we did was we started off by just what I teach. Put up a blog, start putting regular updates of what we did. When we did an interview, we started a podcast, and we would interview people and then have them transcribed to be parts of the interviews in the book. But that it sort of worked. Some of it was there, some of it we wrote. We wound up with 700 pages on how to use a 140 character service. So I had to do a lot of editing. But and everything we did, it was all tying into building the army, building the audience of the people. So we interviewed all the top Twitter users. We encouraged them to talk to us publicly. We transcribed those, we put them in the book, and then here's the part that I'm getting to. We gave out 3,500 copies of the book as an ebook before we launched it. Our theory was that the people we knew, besides owing somebody a book if if they've interviewed them or they've helped you on a promotion or whatever, we knew that those 3,500 would become our army to tell other people about it. So we put out the free ebook. It was a limited time. You could download it. Just give us your email. Actually lost that mailing list and through a series of misfortunes, but so we didn't really build up a community or anything afterwards. We just used it to launch the book. At the end of that time, we came out with the book. We went to a convention. I gave away probably about 100 copies of the book, mostly targeting the people that we'd interviewed, and and then a few others, and used it to meet people. And I'll tell you, when you walk up to somebody and say, "I appreciate what you do. Here's a book," you sign it. What they're going to do is they're going to look at the cover. They're going to turn it over, look at the back. They're going to turn it back to the front, open it up, read what you read, maybe flip through it if it's somebody you put in the book, and then they're going to give you the biggest smile you ever saw, and that's what you want to have happen. And with giving away 3,500 copies of the ebook, we just like really did that. And if you want to parallel this to fan fiction turned into 50 Shades of Grey and that empire, that's essentially what was done there. Give something to the community, build them, champion them, and then they're there for you when you're ready to launch.
Well, and that's one of my favorite strategies, is giving someone an autographed copy of the book with the inscription. I mean, that's the warmest lead you can get, because it's so much more powerful than something necessarily virtual or even having the business card. I always talk about the paperback version of your book being that modern day business card, because it can be so powerful to really warm up someone to support you and be part of your tribe.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Today I have, things like I'm on list of most influential people. I'm doing a lot of work in blockchain today. So, I'm number one on some list, and I have the large Twitter following. And, after 10 years of talking about Twitter, that was kind of inevitable. I didn't do it for that back then. Now I realize that it's such an asset. So I'm known. And I find I don't hand out books like I used to. But I just ordered. We wrote a book called Billions Rising, about bringing up the people that giving a hand up instead of a handout to people to reduce poverty. And I better be careful, or I talk about that for 2 hours. I really love that, and that's what led me into being able to transfer payments without paying the banks and governments and wire services 25% of your gross. And that led me to blockchain, and that's how I got into blockchain, and I'm known in the crypto communities and stuff because of a book I wrote that had no intention. In fact, I don't think the word blockchain appears in the book. It just led me that way. It was a paid gig. I was helping somebody out. Next thing I knew, I was helping them with a podcast. I fell in love with the topic. Had there been funding for me to just switch my career and go work on that, I would have. I really enjoyed teaching the power of self-reliance. And by the way, the poor people of the world don't want a handout. They want a hand up in everything, in hundreds of cases that we went to. And anyway, that led me to have fame in an area I didn't even expect. So if you're considering writing a book, stop considering, write the book. And if you say you're working on a book and nearly done, we all know that means that you've got an outline in the first chapter. We know that it's not nearly done. It's not that hard to get it done, but you're going to need some help. And so that's what I like about what you're doing, Paul. People don't need to go out and explore and learn all this on their own. Instead of getting a publisher, letting them pay for all of these expenses you have, you figure it out, you budget the time it takes, and you get the book done. And it will be life-changing. It doesn't matter where you are. If you get a book and you never sell a copy, just giving them out can make you millions of dollars. So, no matter what your aim is, a book is a good thing for any career.
Well, and that's my philosophy. As we talked about before the show started, this show is about you guys. It's not about me. It's about you guys. My role is to be the guide. My role is to kind of be like the Yoda, and then the guest is kind of like the Luke Skywalker, where we want to support those that want to get published, but we want to be the guide, and that's the main thing with that.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking of looking up to you as a Yoda, which I don't have a problem with that part, but then I realized how short Yoda was. Hard to look up to. Okay, I'm making my own humor over here on the side today.
No, you're good. In fact, what I want to do now is transition over to your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Wow. It's so hard to have a favorite. It'd be like asking me which of my children is my favorite. But one that comes to mind today, as you ask, tomorrow might be something different, is a book called Obliquity by John Kay. It's an economist out of the UK who's written several books about helping us understand the very practical, simple math that controls how the world's working instead of listening to what the media tells us. And Obliquity the point is that if you have a goal, the chances of you going in a straight line towards that goal are like, nil. It's not going to happen. There's going to be an obstacle. There's going to be something in the way. And like the famous story of, which I imagine you've heard, 3M and getting Post-it notes. Mm-hmm. It was a mistake. The glue didn't work. It wasn't sticking. And a guy said, well, maybe it'll help with this. And the next thing you know, it's $1 billion industry of selling Post-it notes to everybody. And sure enough, all of the big R&D research firms, including 3M, say we don't set out to do something and do it. We go out and do research and we run into things. And it's that serendipity that I think is so totally underrated in our lives, that if you think about it, everything major and good that happened in your life came from some little tiny thing that happened. And so when you're thinking that, writing another blog post for my blog or getting another 500 words written for my book is something that is, it's not going to make that much difference, you're wrong. It does. Those are little things to do. And when you have something go wrong, like, I can't tell you how often I've talked to a successful author who said when they're writing their first book, they got about a third through and some major life crisis got in the way. Or the job changed, or they lost their job, or they got a promotion, or somebody in the family was sick or dead or whatever. Life happens, and they went ahead and persevered and got the job done. And it was that experience that made them able to get to the next thing. So if you ask me how life's going today, I'll say, I've had 62 years to get to this point to bring me to exactly this moment where I'm honored and pleased to be able to be talking to you. It's the most important thing in my life for the next couple of minutes at least. And I look for the serendipity now. I try hard. I think I told you before we started recording, you can have your questions. I've thrown them away. I'm going to do my best to give you the absolute best answer to each one of your questions. And it's going to be me real time giving it thought and giving you an answer. And boy, after I did that a couple of thousand times, it became very easy to do. Mm-hmm. And now I just so enjoy, being a guest on a podcast, helping somebody in a startup, advising the companies I advise. All those things just come so easily and carefree because I'm not there thinking, how can I get this done under deadline and make the money off of it?
Absolutely.
That's a long answer for what's my favorite book, but I thought it was helpful.
No, that was great. So, Warren, for our final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
You can get anything you want out of life if you help enough other people get what they want. That's Zig Ziglar. It's a great way of putting the golden rule. And absolutely everything in life is a matter of how much you give. Yes. You read Think and Grow Rich in the first chapter. It talks about a 4-step process. Boy, if you don't have that memorized, internalized, I'm not talking about the words, the 4 steps, the feeling of what you need to do, mm-hmm. which is, establish a goal, commit to following a plan to get to it, to give something of value in return, and, and be open to the universe providing that for you. You read the first chapter of Think and Grow Rich, you have everything you need to be successful in life. The rest is just entertainment. If you're listening to this podcast, you know most of this stuff already. It's reminding you, entertaining you, maybe putting off what you really need to be doing. But once you sit down and say, this is what needs to be done, this is what I'm going to give in return, it's going to work. And so the power of giving is just so strong. People come to me and they say, well, not in my situation, with my job, with my family, and my circumstances. I give, and get nothing. What am I supposed to do? And there's only one answer. Sometimes it's harsh, but I have to use the only answer I know for that. No matter where you are in life or what your circumstances are, if you want more, you got to give more.
Yep. Yeah, I have the same philosophy as well. I give away, even my latest book, I give that away freely, and people are like, why are you giving that away? Well, my philosophy is I want to help as many people get published as possible. And how can I do that? Because I'm going to give the knowledge to them. And that's my philosophy too. Help people. Karma's a beautiful thing. When you do good, it's going to come back eventually in a good way. And if you don't do good, that's going to come back as well. And I've always lived by that philosophy.
It does. And, and the thing is, once you learn that giving is better than receiving, I remember hearing that first time as a kid, and, oh, but Mom, I want the gifts, I mean, that's naturally, and that's never left me, that it's always there. And I'm doing this, and I'm online, and I'm in business. I get up and I work every day because I want to succeed. It's not like I've given up on my goals. But the difference is I've let go of the need to conform to make something happen the way I've been told that it's supposed to happen. I don't need to go to a 9-to-5 job to validate that I'm worthy of getting a job. I don't have to, please my mother. There's nothing like that left for me to do. And I know it takes a long time to get to this point. This is not something. So one of the biggest lessons for me was doing quite well and then suddenly having nothing. And, that learned, my philosophy, understanding things just grew. I realized that I really didn't care about the material wealth, that I accumulate things and I enjoy doing it, but I'm mostly looking for, whether it's the experiences, which are much more fun when you have money, and the ability to use my talents to give, to serve, to create a better world, and nothing else gives me anywhere near that amount of joy. Ultimately, the greatest of that is being able to, raise children and have them do well. That's great. But I found after they were grown and gone, there were many other ways to do it. And it wasn't about being able to pay somebody's bills to help them. It was about being able to help. And one time I'm down and out and I asked a friend, I said, what am I supposed to do about this? I did a good job. They thanked me profusely. They said it was wonderful. And then they asked for a refund of more money than I had in a bank account at that point. And I said, what is it? He says, well, wait a minute. If you don't have any money, you got to have a lot of time. And I said, yeah, you're right. I can fix it. I can go back to the person and say, what is it going to take to fix this? And that's what they're mostly looking for. Most of the world is not looking for a way to screw you. Most people are looking for something good. Like I said, in the Billions Rising thing, most people are looking for maybe a hand up, but not a handout. They're not trying to hurt you. And if you are getting hurt on a regular basis, then maybe you need to change that situation. I can't speak to that, but I do know that giving would be a good thing. So, you might be giving somebody a break by getting away from them, so it's not necessarily anything you do can be described as giving, but it's that giving attitude of learning after decades of doing it that the more I give, the more I get.
Absolutely. Well, Warren, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online? Well,
I'm WarrenWhitlock.com, WarrenWhitlock. I'm also Warren Whitlock on just about everything else. In a Google search, you ought to find, a few 100,000 entries about me. And so, reach out, ask me. I love to get tweets from people that have heard something on a podcast. I want to know what helped, what you're going to use, something like that. Feel free to ask me a question or say wonderful, because I have an ego. But really, a good show is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for how can we change the world? How can we really do something better in the world? And tell me what you got out of listening to this, and I'd love to hear from you.
Well, Warren, I want to thank you again for being a guest on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.